by nature, I run my own tour, Roman with Roman photo tours. And I've been doing this for about 13 years on my own as photo tours. But I started out as a landscape photographer because you can't afford the big glass. But I do macro, landscapes, and all this other stuff. I was a Boy Scout, believe it or not. And when I was upstate New York, my parents had a place up in the Catskills. And I looked up and saw the stars in the Milky Way. I was like, wow, that is cool. I have lived 15 miles outside of New York City my entire life. So I never saw that many stars until I got away from the city. As I became a photographer and started doing this over 30 years, I was a backpacker hiker going out to the Tetons, Yellowstone, all these cool places. I wanted to capture that. On film, my success was with star trails pretty good. Milky Way, not so good. About 8 years ago, I started getting ready for my book because I got a new digital camera body. That changed everything. And how it changed everything is I'm able to now capture the Milky Way one shot, exactly what I see when I'm out there. So this program is going to consist on how to do stars, star points, star trails, and my newest passion, hanging my butt out of a helicopter, shooting out a helicopter with the doors off over the city. So I am sponsored by Sigma. I'm a Sigma Pro for 3 years. What I like about star photography, though, and this is going to be the big one on for display, what do you need for star and star trail photography? Very sturdy tripod. Your exposure is going to be 20 to 30 seconds for the night stars to an hour or more for the star trails. Camera body with high ISO capabilities. I kind of give a quote on that. If your camera's 4 years old or younger, it works. Wide angle and fast. My newest glass I use is the Sigma lineup of the 2024. They're 1.4 lenses. I'm using them because I can drop my ISO down then, all right? So that's good. But that rule of 500 applies to everybody. Focal length times shutter speed equals 500 or less. So when I use my 12 to 24, 12 times 30 seconds, 360, I'm good. I won't get star trails in a 30-second exposure. Now my 24 millimeter, 24 times 20, these are on full frame bodies, by the way, that's 480. I'm close. On the outside edges, I start to get a little trailing. So I drop my exposure down to 15 seconds. Which loses one stop of light. But hey, it's a 1.4. I can open it up to 1.4. I get all that back. So the leveling bubble for the hot shoe, yeah, your camera has the level built in and on it, but it eats up battery life. If you want to do totally circular trails, you need to find the North Star. So I use a compass. My son says, how about an app for that, Dad? I said, fine. I said, show me where the app is when your phone battery dies every day. Where's the app for that? All right? And the headlamp with spare batteries. So when I started out doing this, it was difficult in the film age, you know, because I couldn't judge my exposure times or anything else. I had all this other stuff besides the digital body, and I put my book out 5 years ago when the cover of Outdoor Photographer said, you can't do what I'm about to tell you how to do. And that's how much digital has changed. So here's my fancy setup. That's the 1D Mark III at the time. Cable release, mechanical one, that's the 12 to 24. I use basically now 3 lenses, the 12 to 24 when I need my ultra wide, the 20 millimeter and the 24. The 20 and the 24 are 1.4 lenses. The 12 to 24 is a 4.5. So you need something 4.5 or faster for this. So when do I use my 12 millimeter? When something's really big. I just took this about 2 weeks ago. All right? It's a big opening up there in Monument Valley. This is at 4.5, and I'm going to give you the settings. Look at that Milky Way. This was my dream. So you're able to do it because I'm at 4.5, I'm at 30 seconds, I'm wide open at 12 to try to capture this thing. So I also like to do old creepy things, and we're going to talk about light painting. This is out in Nevada. Every time my wife knows I'm running into Walmart, she knows I'm in trouble. I'm buying these day glow things from the kid party section, and I'm just putting them in everywhere that I can. And even the 24. So this is ISO 3200 because I'm using my 24 and about 15 seconds. Okay? So this is what you're capable to do of one shot in camera. This is not stacking. This is not doing anything crazy. Setting what I'm going to give you, click. That's it. These camera bodies are capable of some incredible stuff out there now. So what are some tips for you? No moon to a quarter moon phase. I like it when the moon is half of the half, a quarter of the visible moon. That means it'll illuminate your foreground and your background and everything else like that, just like it does during the day. So your favorite sunrise location should be your favorite moonrise location. Your favorite sunset location should be your favorite moonset location. The same shadows, everything else. Heavy clouds. If you go out there and you go, oh, I see one star and everything else, go to sleep. Get another day. Check the radar. You know? A few clouds look kind of cool. A few hours after sunset, your eye will not pick up the sun below the horizon. Your camera certainly will, especially at ISO 3200 or 6400. Light pollution. I don't need to tell you guys, where we live, just run away. I thought I was going to do the city after Sandy. I couldn't make it out of my yard to even try it. But still, just too much light pollution here in this area. It just travels too far. I'm looking at this as a landscape photographer, not as an astronomer. So I want something in my image. And number 6, the lawyers made me do it. Extra attention should be. But in all seriousness, just take your time when you're out there. It's dark. You know, if it took you an hour to do during the day, give it 2 hours. No need to rush. And this is when most people start out with a silhouette and the stars. This is how many stars are out there. And I'm not really going to talk about post-processing too much other than to tell you that Canon shooters, you tend to get magenta noise in our images, all right, at the high ISOs. Nikon shooters, the green glow or whatever you want to call it. So when I'm processing an image like this, I'll do a separate layer on the sky because when I look up, I do not see magenta in the sky. Hue saturation, magenta, boom. You can go into the magenta slider in the raw converter and also tweak it, but I usually do it in post-processing. All the new software that's out on the market today, the noise reduction, it's incredible. Most of these images were done with Noise Ninja or none run at all, except an ACR or something like that. Moonlight, there you go. This is moonlit out in Zion with a few clouds. So they get that same streaking effect as you do when you do a long exposure on water. Light pollution, it's all about how you title your image. Sunset at the Keene Barn. Anybody believe that sunset over there on that side? No, it's the city of Lake Placid, New York, about 10 miles away. This is also lit by a street lamp coming in this side. I light painted this side. I'm going to talk about that a lot in the future. So how do you compose at night? I'm telling you to go out there when it's basically pitch black. Live view isn't going to work. Trust me, been there, done that. How do you do that? Use a really big flashlight. I walked into Cabela's probably 8 years ago and I saw this flashlight that was about this big, had a name called Thor X. Cool. I admit to a flashlight fetish. I really do. And the only problem with Thorex is that on an 18-hour charge, it would last about 45 minutes. But it was so bright that when I pointed it at whatever I wanted to photograph, I can actually see at night. I have replaced it with this guy. I'll tell you how much of it costs, unless you don't tell my wife or give her the YouTube subscription, because I'll get in trouble. That tiny monster with rechargeable batteries is about $300. But it lasts about 8 hours now, and I could use it all night on a single charge of about 6-7 hours. So this is what I used to travel with. This is Thorex. You can see why TSA left me love letters in my luggage all the time. It also had an incandescent bulb which made the image orange. This is Tiny Monster with an LED light. This more closely resembles moonlight. It's more blue, it's more cold. So now the LED lights really work to fool you. This is how big Tiny Monster is. All right? So that's an easy way to see at night. Now, how do you focus at night? Excuse me. So there was 2 methods, and I'm only giving you method 1. There's a lot of people here who have the kit lenses, the 18 to 55s, whatever. They don't have a hyperfocal chart on them. They don't have that on them. So what you do is you go out there during the day, you autofocus on whatever you want to take a picture of, keep it about 30 feet away from you or more, and then you use sports tape to lock it. Okay, that's where it is in focus. Put it on manual focus, go out, have dinner, come back to the same location, and you can take the shot because you know it's in focus. You don't have to be in the exact spot, but pretty close. So once you lock it, there you go. This is a slide image. All right, and this is for an hour. So that's how I did this. I did it during the day, auto-focused on it, came back a couple hours later. Now, that sports tape trick comes in handy too when you want to do this. Because when you're hanging, this is Seattle skyline, when you're in a helicopter, no doors on, photographing, and we're going to talk about that at the end, you don't want your focus ring to move because the cost of the helicopter at $500 to $1,500 an hour, you don't want to come back and say, my images aren't sharp. So if you autofocus during the day at something 200 feet away from you or more, because you're not getting closer to that than a building, even at 1.4, wide open, everything from 70 feet to infinity is in focus. So when I go up in a helicopter, I tape my focus ring down manually, right? And I use sports tape. It's not that sticky, it comes off easily, and it doesn't move. So the one that revolutionized my book 5 years ago is how do you focus at night no matter what? You go out during the day. You put something 30 feet away from you, 40, don't have to break out the tape measure. If you're going to make a mistake, make it 50 feet away from you or more. Note where that is on your lens. Your lens and your camera body combination, it's going to be in different areas. I can almost say where the Canon lenses are going to be and Sigma lenses are going to be on my camera bodies. Nikon, you're in a different location. So just test this during the day. Take a look at it. And with these wide angle lenses, let's use my 12 millimeter, for example, everything from about 7 feet to infinity is in focus, even at 4.5. At 1.4, everything from 12 feet, 20 feet. There's an app for that, depthofFieldmaster.com. But this is what it looks like. So I can get out at night, slam the lens to 12 millimeter, put it right on that, it's in focus, as long as I don't get anything closer to me. Remember, your lens and camera body combination may be in different location. Nikon shooters, I've seen this line somewhere in the middle here. So test it during the day. Now you go out at night, I could set it on that mark every day or tape it, and I could shoot all night. That's how easy it is to focus at night and get in there. So, you know, I needed every bit of that 12 millimeter for this, you know? And this is light painted. I'll talk to you about that. On the 24 millimeter, I did the city here at night as well. I taped it, set it on that mark, and now I'm just up there focusing on taking pictures. All right? So what are your settings for the stars? I call them star points because when I look up, I don't see trail. These are starting points for you. You can mix and match these numbers depending on the speed of your lens, how well your camera handles noise, and all that other good stuff. So ISO 6400, I know, scary place. We were just shooting at ISO 50-something thousand downstairs with a D500, I think. There's almost no noise in them. So realize that the pro bodies do better on noise. I have a 1DX now. f4.5 or wider, so I'm using it at f4.5. My 24 1.4, I'm using it at 1.4 because then I can drop my ISO down. So they're mix and match numbers. Remember the rule of 500. So what's the difference? Am I going to get stars at ISO 1600 or 3200? Sure. That's 3200. Hopefully it shows up with the light. There's 6400. See the difference between the two? So every stop of light gives you more and more stars. So anybody here been to Arches? Okay. So I did it in the winter. This is 6 years ago when I'm doing it in my book. I hiked up to Delicate Arch in the snow. On a stupidity scale of 1 to 10, this is a 12. How you title your item, Moonrise at Delicate Arch. No, Moab, Utah, 3 miles away. It lit the cloud. And when I saw this image, and we had Thor X at the time. We had to find our way in the middle of the night. It was 8 degrees out. I brought my sleeping bag with me. Trust me, when I hiked up there with all my camera gear, steam was just coming off of me. So we go up there and we see this, and I go to the ranger the next day, and I said, I want to get to the other side of Delicate Arch. I've been there a lot of times. And I said, is there like even a little ledge on the other side? I was up there last night. He goes, hold on a second. You were up there last night in the ice on the trails and everything? I go, yeah. And he goes, are you nuts? And I go, well, check it out. And the beauty of digital, you could show him right away, right? There's what I got. He goes, that's really cool, but you're still really nuts. And he goes, the answer to that is no, it's a big drop on the other side. No, you can't do that. So my wife usually raises my life insurance up incrementally over the years. But again, I'm trying to capture this. This has been, the Milky Way has been the dream. Because I've been able to do star trails pretty effectively with film. But it's also a workflow for me. By doing these short exposures, I know how long to light paint and everything else. So I've told you how to do the star points. How do you do star trails? You don't really change anything but your ISO. You do have to set your camera to bulb. Somewhere in your menu, whatever. I use my cable release, and anything after 30 seconds, you're getting trails. Okay? So the longer the exposure, you can be open 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. Notice probably the only time you can do that is the winter time. All right? And these are single shot in camera. Your camera, the old cameras used to overheat. The first generation digital bodies in an hour used to overheat a lot. I've never taken an image at above 60 degrees Fahrenheit for an hour, so maybe temperature, you want to keep it cool to cold. So your camera won't overheat, But the new bodies really don't have that issue. And this is when we hiked up and did the short exposure of delicate arch. There's my hour. Okay? Now the reason I asked the ranger if I could get to the other side is you only get the perfect circles if you're including the North Star. All right? So how do you find a North Star? Okay, well, compass app, your phone has all these cool things where the Milky Way is going to rise and ever. The Big Dipper points at the North Star. So it's pretty easy to find, especially here when the Big Dipper is one of the few things we can see. And then it rotates around that. And I use it as a compositional element. But when you're out there with all these stars, let's find Waldo, you know. It's not quite as easy as it was back here in the city. But I'm going to use that to judge my light painting and everything else. So there it is. And I decided that, okay, we need more light on south window. So we just lit it a little more, and there's the hour exposure, right? So, and again, how do you tell an hour? Timex. You know, I just set my watch alarm for close to it. It doesn't have to be exact, a little over, it doesn't matter. It's not a precise time. I find that hour gives me a decent amount of trails. And if you look up top, that's the Big Dipper, how far it moved in 1 hour. 2 hours would be twice as long, 3 hours, you get the picture, all right? Do I stand out there and next to my camera? No. It's the middle of the night. Since I wrote the book 5 years ago, though, to give you an asterisk, there's a lot of people running out there. I just came back from my May trip, more people than I've ever seen. It's exciting now, so people are out there. It's a big park. You got a lot of locations. I basically lock the cable open, go back to the car, especially when it's 8 degrees, and take a nap. Timex alarm will wake me up. I go back and get the camera. You'll hear a car. You'll see a car, all right? Just make sure that your lights aren't pointed at what you're doing, and don't walk in front of your camera. So ISO, I was out there in Park Avenue. Try to light paint this Park Avenue, my favorite time. I had Thorax out there. I'm painting it. It's streaky. It's blotchy. This is digital, people. There should be no fear in you. Try to push your camera what it can do. I said, what's the big deal if I push it up to ISO 400? Nothing. Pushed it up to 400, there you go. I did not see the sun rising over there. That was about 4:30 in the morning. Camera picked it up. I light painted this with Thorax for about 8 minutes until the battery died. So what's the big deal if nothing happened? I have pushed my ISO now to 640 with no moon. Out in the Tetons, the stars will light the mountain range. So again, if it didn't work, delete, lesson learned, move on. This is your processing lesson. So we're going to go back to this one. Look at all the colors that you have in these stars. There's blues, there's reds, there's everything else. Really shows up. Look at what happened on this one. So they're all white. And it's because I probably over-processed the sky with either a levels layer or a brightness contrast, and I cooked the color out of the sky. So just be careful when you're processing your images. And for the most part, on my hour images, I don't even run noise reduction. So it's not the same thing. So I got the 24 millimeter, and basically, this is light painted with my headlamp. You know, but I'm open at 1.4 now. Look at all the color in these stars. You know, so just be careful with that. So painting with light. Painting is art, not science. I can't give you specific times. How close are you to your subject? How fresh are your batteries? The one thing I can tell you is sloppy and fast. You're moving it like this. If it's If I had a flashlight on right now, you guys would be much brighter. I might not even paint you. I'm just trying to paint the back row or things that are further away from me. But by doing those tests at 30 seconds, so let's say I had to paint it 30 seconds at my high ISO thing, right? The longer you can paint, the smoother the paint job. So at ISO 3200, that's 1 minute, 1600, 2 minutes. Until I get down to ISO 100, I'd have to stand out there for 32 minutes to paint it at the same time. I don't want to stand out there 32 minutes. It's cold. Use a bigger flashlight. Have your friends join the painting party. But what you really need to look out for on this image, this is again another image from a couple of weeks ago, I didn't even paint any of this. That's all light spill off from my flashlight. I'm just painting up here. And it's falling off and it's doing the, again, you're gonna practice, but here in 30 seconds, you know how long you need to light paint. How big is your flashlight? You know, you travel, you saw my new one, Tiny Monster. I still use this headlamp. I still use one of these guys because they give me that yellow-orange glow. I've gotten rid of the rest of them because they're incandescent bulbs and they're more yellow. So I have switched to LED lights. Everything I have now is LED. So the one thing you don't see in here is a flash. There's not too many things that you can effectively cover with a flash because of light pooling, but certain things you can. I wanted to freeze the eruption of White Dome Geyser. So it started erupting, hit the button, 4, 5, 30 seconds on my 12 millimeter, took the flash, walked away from my camera, walked away, boom, fired it off once. Froze the eruption, let the shutter continue to open, got the Milky Way and the steam eruption. But this thing's only about 10 foot tall, and the eruption's only about 15 foot tall. So my goal has been to do wildlife at night. So my sister-in-law lives down in Florida, in Miami, South Miami, so the Everglades is my backyard occasionally. I did an alligator at night. I was in the water with this little guy. He's only 5 foot tall. He's hard to see with the lights on. He's right there. He's only about 5 foot big. So I get out there and set up my tripod. I looked for mom and dad. I took the flashlight, went, okay, if you see red eyes, don't go in the water. All right? And I was only 50% in, so to be fair, only my right foot. He came swimming up. Obviously, the fishermen feed him during the day. And I'm out there trying to light paint him with my headlamp. Oh, it's a moving animal. The water's moving, you know. So he's kind of a ghost. And then I remembered the geyser picture. And I came out there and I said, all right, ran out, got my flash, hit the button again. So I jumped in the water, hit the button again, was this close to him, fired the flash. Too bright. Hit the button again, went to the back row over there, fired the flash. That's the result. Distance to subject. Light falls off with distance. So if you're too close, it can be too bright. Back up. Works the same way. So there's a lot of methods to it. So you guys think professional photographers have it easy. I come home back to my sister-in-law's house at 3 a.m. I wake up my wife, I go, hon, you gotta see this. I got a gator at night with the stars. I've never seen it, so I'm excited. I get excited, all right? And she goes, I go, no, really, an alligator at night. I was in the water with him. I got him with the stars. You got to check this out. I pull up the LCD. She kind of looks over. I think she opened up one eye and went, oh, that's nice, and then went back to bed. Now, in the photography world, that's nice, like taking your sister to the prom or something like that. It's just not nice. That's like the ego deflator of the century. That's nice. I mean, geez, I'm in the water with an alligator. Don't I get a little credit? Like, whoa. So I wake up the next morning. She's in the kitchen with her sister. She's having coffee. I'm going to grab my coffee. And I'm walking by, and she goes, "Did I hear you right last night? You were in the water with the alligator?" And I go, "Yeah, what'd you think of the picture?" Totally ignored me. Calls up the insurance agent and says, "Raise him up another $500,000. Come on. So, it's not always so glamorous, by the way. So I'm using combination of light sources now. This is moonlit. I decided to take a mag light and put it on one of the windows on the other side, pointed it up at the ceiling so it looked like somebody was in the building. So I'm using a combination of light sources now. So special challenges, half to a full moon phase. Oh boy, it's just too bright. Your naked eye doesn't see the amount of stars that you do. So when I plan my trips, I'm planning it around the moon phase. But if your foreground's too bright, you can cover part of the lens for the exposure. This is the darkroom guy in me thinking about this. So you can use your split neutral density filter upside down. I'm going to tell you to do something we've told you to never do. Stick your hand in front of the camera. You can cover the lens for part of the exposure and block out the light from reaching it. So there you go. You're moving it up and down so you don't get a hard line. I tried using cardstock, like black cardstock, and it just gave too harsh of a line. So I'd even move my split neutral density filter upside down. And you want to be that close. If you want to back off, put on like a black felt glove. So I'm out in Maine doing a lighthouse at night, full moon. I had a cover from here down every time the lighthouse lit. I can tell you this, you're better off looking at the moon phases and planning your trip around that phase, if you can. This is from my most recent trip out in Arches too. Moonlit. It's about a quarter moon phase. I did have to cover it a little bit because it was too bright. So let's put the stars and the star trails together. This is a little flashlight pointed it directly at balanced rock. Nothing says you have to light paint directly at your subject. This is Thor's hammer out in Bryce. I want to go back here with the correct moon phase so it's lit just like it is at sunset. But I bounced the flashlight. There were rocks behind me. I pointed it at the rocks behind me. This is what lit Thor's hammer. This is, again, from my most recent trip, this is what lit Mesa Arch. I bounced it off the rocks 50, 100 feet behind us, and it nice and evenly illuminated Mesa Arch. So light doesn't have to be direct. It's the hardest to control. Nice diffuse bounce really works well. Mix and match your light sources. Moonrise at the schoolhouse. This is private property now, by the way. This is just outside of Moab. So a street lamp lighting this. I have a little flashlight in every one of those windows. And just for good measure, I ran around with another LED flashlight to paint the shadow side. So I think 6 or 7 flashlights are involved in that painting. And again, you get your results in 30 seconds and you get that instant feedback. When I do the in-the-field workshops too, I try to tell people, trust your histogram. It's night photography, so yes, it's going to be pinned towards that left-hand side. But you want to make sure that you get it to that right-hand side without having blown highlights. Because your camera's going to fix that image that you're going to see on your LCD and you're going to say it's too bright. Oh, your eyes have adjusted to the night. Trust your histogram. Because noise shows up in the dark areas. It's very easy to darken an image. You don't want to have to lighten it too much because you're bringing up all the noise. So that I can't stress enough. Everybody says it's too bright. You're looking at the JPEG it popped up. No, it's not. Your histogram is perfect. You know, it's going to be skewed to the dark side, but That's expected, it's night. But look at the shadows. This is moonrise. You get the same shadows during the day, everything. This is perfectly illuminated. So I'm sure you guys go to the national parks like I do. What do the guidebooks say? Well, you should be at the Mormon Row Barns at sunrise. Well, you should be there at moonrise too. For good measure, I put a flashlight under the door to light the windows. Watch where you're walking. Gopher holes, I mean, everywhere out there. So no kidding, they're ankle breakers, they're leg breakers. What does the guidebook say next? Let's go to Schwabacker's Landing. There you go. So you're doing basically what you're doing during the day now at night, which is really cool because the crowds are a lot less and you get to hear the parks. And even the accidental light painting. This is street lights from houses about quarter mile away that light painted this and lit it up. This is out near Cayenta. So you think you can only do rocks? Waterfalls at night is going to be my next big thing. It works the same way. Everything's fair game. And I like the star points preferably because I was able to do the star trails. And in 30 seconds, we can go do another thing. So in the wintertime or in the fall, I can do 8, 10 different locations now in one night. Just make sure your batteries are charged. Those batteries last a very long time today. Somebody says, well, how did a battery handle the cold? Hey, I am the Earl Scheib of fixing things when they go wrong and the inexpensive way. You can go to any sporting goods store, Home Depot, buy hand warmers, right? The ones that you're going to use for yourself. Well, buy a pair for yourself and a pair for the camera. 2 rubber bands strapped to your battery compartment. The heat transfer will keep your battery relatively warm. All right? You get condensation on your lens. 2 of those rubber bands onto your lens, the heat transfer will keep the condensation off your lens. Some kid in one of these presentations says, well, there's a thing that they sell that you need a motorcycle battery and electrodes. I go, kid, I'm 51 years old. I am not carrying a motorcycle battery and electrode. You know? One of the few times I broke my rule of don't get too close, I intentionally did not light the foreground because it is a little blurry. Literally, my camera is in this puddle on the ground at White Dome Geyser. It's a pothole by the side of the road. So just keep that rule in mind. And now moonlit. This is my favorite vista in Arches. Now think about it. In the summertime or in the spring, this is the main road. You will get somebody driving through there. So in the wintertime, a lot less people. But if you're there and it's warmer and you're standing next to your camera, you can cover your lens with a hat or whatever. You'll get a little break in your star points, but you won't have to redo the exposure, all right? And like I said, when it comes to the processing, look at the color. This is moonlit. So you go out there, you do the star points. This is your cautionary tale. Traffic laws are traffic laws in our national park, even at night. Ask me how I know this. So this is Old Faithful, millions of pictures during the day. And I came out there at midnight. There were people with their iPhones and iPads flashing it, taking their pictures. I said, I'll come back. I did my math, 3 hours. All right, I'll come back at 3 in the morning. So this is behind the Old Faithful Visitor Center and the lodge. So at the intersection when you're getting there, there's a stop sign. It's 3 in the morning. There's nobody out there. I didn't stop. And I went through, pull into the parking lot, get in my camera gear, Ranger, lights on, the whole 9 yards. And he says, what are you doing out here? Oh, taking pictures. He goes, stop signs are stop signs, even at 3 in the morning. I go, really? He goes, yeah, really. Oh, I am crashing and burning now. I go, It's pitch black. I can see miles in every direction. I go, what were you doing out here? He goes, waiting for you. Then you just got to put your head down at that point and throw yourself at the mercy. He goes, look, I think I saw you tap the brake lights. He goes, I'll let you off with a warning this time, but stop sign. I said, yes, sir, absolutely, no problem. So you've been warned. They're hiding somewhere out there. So I did my short exposure, turn around, do the long exposure. So there you go. And that's the workflow that I'll do the short one, and then I'll do the long one. So all the iconic locations, even pros get lucky sometimes. I broke my rule. This is moonrise lighting up this side of the Watchman and the Virgin River. Anybody want to guess what's lighting the other side of the Watchman? Springdale, Utah, thank you very much. So sometimes even we get lucky. And I've been dying to redo my cover shot of Park Avenue. Moonlit, there it is, moonlit. So when this image showed up on my LCD screen 5 years ago, I never touched my film camera again. This is what I had always dreamed of. And over the years with my tour company, I've seen every camera body, every make, model get the same or similar results. This is now possible for everybody. Aerial, not so much. So, we are talking about doors off helicopter. Like I said, 15 miles outside of New York City, my friend calls me up last year and says, you want to do a helicopter flight? I go, I'm not afraid of heights, but aren't you? She goes, yeah. So I said, okay, sure. We booked a helicopter for $1,200 for an hour. From the time you take off to the time you touch down. And she's like, let's do Yankee Stadium, let's do this. Okay. Of course I said yes, booked the helicopter. Hey, it's split in half, it's only $600, okay. Don't rest your hands against anything. The vibration, anything, you have problems. This is only possible because of that 1.4 lens. So I'm going to give you the settings right now. Depending on the time of evening, 1600, usually when the sun's setting, to 6400. I prefer 1.4 so I could keep my images at around ISO 3200. Look at this shutter speed. It's only 1/125th to 1/160th of a second. The more speed you can get, the better it is for you. But I'm talking about night over the cities. So with the 24, f1.4, 1/60th. So there's the canopy. You just took the doors off. Obviously, you're in a seatbelt. It's not necessarily a 5-point harness, by the way. And I'm not afraid of heights. For the first time in my life, I actually flew over the plane's landing at Newark Airport. And you're able, with those settings, to do that. So this was in my August trip. So what blew me away when we're talking about depth of field and everything else like that, this is Times Square. We're close to this right now, right? Check out what happens when I zoom in 400%. That's the stage. That's zoomed in 400%. Look how sharp that is. Why? Because I'm not 200 feet, 400 feet from a building. I'm probably further away. So even at 1.4, it's all in there. You're not going to get closer. And this one, my son lives somewhere over there in Brooklyn. But, you know, I was able to do this. So what's new, aerial photography? You want to do this. There's a thing called TFRs, which I found out about after I booked the helicopter. Temporary flight restrictions. When the Yankees are in town, you can't get within 3 miles of a stadium. When you are this, you can't be close to any major league stadium whatsoever. The Pope's in town, POTUS is in town, 10 miles. So make sure you schedule who's going to be in town before you decide to plunk down the money. All these things come into play. And every town, I've done Vegas, Washington State, and New York now, every town is different on what's going on. So you have to keep that in mind. And my highlight was when I did 9/11. I went back up again. My wife goes, how much are you spending on helicopters again? I go, it's a business write-off, don't worry about it. So for me, those are some of the things that you got to do your homework. So that first day's excitement when I'm talking to my friend, she's like, oh, let's do the GW Bridge, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this, let's do that. It's an hour from the time you take off. It takes 7 minutes to get to the Statue of Liberty from my place. And then you go out there and then, again, that clock is ticking. And I'm sitting there holding the camera kind of away from my body. Don't put it past the canopy. The wind grabs that, the downflow, you're done. It's going to cause vibration. But high speed. So high speed shutter, there's part of the key. You're already manually focused. You're going brrr, brrr, brrr. Because not every one of those images are going to be sharp due to vibration, but some of the center ones and middle ones could actually be. So you're basically doing high-speed bursts. You got to be tethered. It's going to be tethered to your arm or something. You don't want to be dropping your camera out. They won't let you on without it being tethered. So try not to do too much. That's the biggest mistake I think people would make. Oh, I want to do this and this. So when I told the guy out in Seattle, now not all helicopter pilots are created equal, by the way. This guy was nuts. I thought I was nuts. No, he was nuts. So he says, what do you want to do? I said, well, I just want to do the Space Needle, the downtown, and we're just basically looping it in circles. I go to the guy, well, how low, what's my TFRs on my deck? You also have height and how high you can go or how low you can go. And he goes 50 feet. I mean, he had us on the water even with that thing. I could feel the vibration. I go, no, get us up, So we flew around, and he goes, oh, didn't you say you want to be on this side? And I have a 24-year-old nephew with me on this thing. He's smiling from ear to ear, but he's terrified of heights. And the helicopter, no lie, flew in backwards into that thing. I went, wow, this guy's good. He's like whimpering on the headset, So we go out, we're going to do the Space Needle, right? It's the most recognizable thing about Seattle. So this is some kind of transportation terminal they got here in the corner. And over the intercom, the pilot goes to me, hey, excuse me, you want to fly over the top of it? I go, oh, yeah. The kid in the back goes, oh, I don't know. On the thing, I go to him, and his mother would kill me if she actually saw the expression on his face. I go, just focus through the camera and take the damn picture. And we went over the top. And when he flew it sideways, it was kind of interesting. So not all pilots are created equal. So I took the family to Hawaii for Christmas and New Year's. They're 21 and 20 and figured this was the last big kid vacation. We flew over the volcanoes. And the most expensive helicopter flight, $1,500 for an hour. So they're with their cell phones and everything else, taking the picture. And in every one of them, you could hear Dad's shutter going, brrr, 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 firing away. But still, the experience was incredible. I mean, you can feel the heat. I asked that pilot, how low can I go? He goes, until we peel the paint off the helicopter. I thought he was kidding, by the way. So we're up at 2,000 feet so as not to buzz the people at sunrise, so he doesn't get FAA complaints. It's like 50, 40 degrees, 40 degrees in the cockpit. So I was dressed for it ready. And he goes, all right, so how low do you want me to drop it down? I go, keep dropping it until I tell you to stop. And he's flying slowly in a circle. It got to 90 degrees in that cockpit, no lie. I said, I think we're low enough. Vegas has serious restrictions because there's only about 24 helicopters up on any given time. So you're in a predictive flight pattern. So when I choose to go out with a friend, even though you could probably fit a third person in some of these helicopters, if you can't turn, that person's not getting the shot. So there's weight distribution stuff. So usually we sit one right in front of the other to offset some of the costs. But like I said, I'm shooting vertical, horizontal. When you're out the window on the my 20 millimeter, I was catching the rotor of the helicopter too often and the skids. So I think the 24 and the 35 will be my favorite choices. But like I said, it's just a cool viewpoint, vantage point. And drones are not allowed in most of this airspace, all right? It's expensive, but just treat yourself once. It is a thrill of a lifetime.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City Superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.